It hadn't quite started snowing yet when I came across these trumpeter swans, but it wasn't far off. But by the time I got away from most of the traffic noise, it had started. The weather forecast said this was going to be the first big snowfall of the season, and I didn't want to miss it. So far, though, not much was happening. Snow was coming down, true, but it wasn't really accumulating. Yes, it was sticking to these cattle, but they have a lot of hair and body fat that insulates them and keeps the snow from melting as it lands on them. Well, so do I, but yeah, well, that's just how that works. The snow was still falling pretty lightly as I headed west and then south and then west again. But as I got into the higher elevations, it started to come down a little bit more. Still though, the flakes were very tiny and it looked almost misty, which was quite beautiful actually. Especially here along Jumping Pound Creek. The snow here was coming down just as fine as icing sugar, and it looked like it too. And the further I went up the creek, the more it accumulated. Up here where the valley gets narrow, it seemed like the snow was more concentrated. It was still falling straight down. Fortunately, there was very little wind, and it was really starting to build up. The more I gained elevation, the heavier the snow got. Not only the amount of it, but the size of the flakes. It was coming down in these dime-sized chunks, and it was sticking to everything. Fortunately, it wasn't very cold. It was around -2, which is really tolerable. But the further I went up the road, the heavier the snowfall became. And though it was stunningly beautiful, I just started to get a little bit concerned about the roads going back down the valley. So instead of continuing on, I turned around, and I'm pretty glad I did. The snow was really starting to fall now, and it was coming down quickly enough that it wasn't melting and sliding off. It was sticking to absolutely everything. But I gotta say this. Man, it was gorgeous. Though I don't imagine these cattle really shared my opinion, it was building up on top of them and covering up the grass they were trying to gnaw on. And trees, like these aspens, still hanging on to their autumn leaves, were starting to carry a pretty heavy weight of snow on their branches. These mallards were walking through the snow instead of flying. I guess maybe because this was the first big snowfall of the season and they weren't used to it. Me neither, but I really enjoyed watching those great big flakes fall. Though I gotta say, ask me again when this happens next April and might be a different story.